This recorded session is dedicated to our discussion on the animal digestive system. So, for the final term, we are covering specific organ systems of the animal body. And for everybody's information, so we will, for the final exam, we will include topics on the animal muscular system, the respiratory system, the digestive system, and the urogenital system. So, I have uploaded the asynchronous material 2 weeks ago, and I hope that all of you took time to review the content of the handout that was prepared specifically for this discussion module. So, to start with, um, the digestive system of animals, both vertebrates and invertebrates, share one function, which is to provide nutrition to the animal body by facilitating the process of digestion. So, nutrition is important for the animal body to carry out its daily functions. The provision of nutrients of building block chemicals from food is important for growth, maintenance, and overall metabolism of the animal body. So animals obtain food um, via different processes. Some of them hunt for their food. Some of them stay uh, or some of them remain stationary at a location and just wait for food to come within or to be within their proximity, especially for the case of specific invertebrates. But anyhow, or any process that an animal um, employs to get its food. Okay, the process of digestion is generally the same. No, so the acquired food is broken down into simpler building blocks, into simpler substances, and then the ultimate goal is for these chemical nutrients to be absorbed and utilized by tissues and cells of the animal body. Okay. There are several processes that are involved for food to be converted from complex biomolecules, to their simplest forms. A combination of both physical and chemical processes that allow for the ultimate absorption of nutrients by the animal body, be it a unicellular animal or a multicellular vertebrate. Now, in terms of location, the process of food digestion can be divided or can be described according to two types. So we have intracellular and extracellular digestion. So intracellular, as suggested by the name, refers to digestion of food material that's taking place inside the cell. So the cell takes in the food material, and within it, digestion takes place. While extracellular, on the other hand, is when the absorb or when the broke when breaking down the food material happens outside the cell, and the cell just takes up the nutrients that are simplified from the larger complex biomolecules. In terms of mechanisms, I've mentioned briefly that it's a combination of several types: physical, mechanical, and chemical. So, physical mechanical digestion takes place by altering the physical state of food without really changing its chemical structure. While chemical digestion is facilitated by additional substances, especially enzymes that are found in or that are secreted in different parts of the animal body, especially for the case of vertebrate animals. So chemical digestion essentially is a catabolic process, breaking down the complex food material molecularly from its large building large molecular state to simpler to its simpler forms or simpler building blocks. Okay, so as an example here, you can see a picture of a unicellular protozoan that takes in its food and digests the food inside it. Okay. Now, in relation to the process or the types of digestion pertinent to the location of the process and the mechanism that is involved, animals have different types of dietary habits. So not all animals or there is a variety of there's a variety of of dietary habits or food preferences across animal types. Okay, so we probably have heard of these terms before. So herbivores refer to animals that feed on plant material. Your ruminants, your cows, your goats, your cattle, horses. Some specific examples of insects or an particularly in or generally some examples of invertebrates actually require food material from plants, or plant-based food material. Then there are the carnivores, which feed on herbivores. Carnivores meaning they feed on animal meat. No? Some examples of these include apex predators like sharks, lions, eagles. Okay, so their diet is mostly or preferably they consume food material from eating herbivores or from eating other animals and consuming the meat or flesh of these animals. And then there are the omnivores, which feed on both plant and animal based materials. So, as an example, we humans are omnivores. No? We feed on plant based and animal based material. Okay. Now, looking into the different types of digestive systems and patterns of digestion, so we'll have a few examples from the unicellular animals going up to the multicellular vertebrates. So first we have incomplete digestive tube, which is mostly associated with intracellular digestion. So in these types of animals, the gut is a closed tube. It's a closed sac that can be called several names, and it's consisting of only one opening. So there is one opening. For in this example, there's an oral groove where food enters and exit and waste materials exit at the same time, or I mean not really at the same time but using the same opening. Okay, mostly found in ciliated protozoans as well as in sponges. Okay, so, insulated protozoans, like the example shown here, ciliary action via the cilia in the cell membrane of the protozoan directs food into the opening, okay, the cytostome of the protozoan, right? And that will enter the cell. It will enter the internal compartments of the cell. Phagocytosis takes place in certain vacuoles, food vacuoles, where intracellular digestion takes place, and later on, the vacuoles with waste material. Okay, so so a food vacuole, of course, consists of food materials broken down from the food that entered the cytostome, that entered the oral groove of the of the protozoan. Then when it's fully consumed, um, what do you call this? Residual vacuoles, which contain waste material from the insides or the compartments of the unicellular animal, will exit the cytostome, will be um, pushed out of the cell, also via the same opening. Okay. And then there is another example of incomplete digestive tube, but this time there is combination of both intracellular and extracellular digestion. Okay, so in incomplete digestive tube, where both types of digestion takes place, most of the time only one opening exists, serves as both the mouth and the anus of the animal, usually found in nidarians, jellyfishes, hydras, some mostly corals, okay, and also for the case of terrestrial animals, we have flatworms that possess incomplete digestive tube, where extracellular and intracellular digestion takes place. No? So after in this example, in this type of digestive pattern, so the food material, okay, the food material, once that it is um, proximal to the, or once it is once it is consumed or or already transported internal to the animal body, okay, extracellular digestion will happen, happening in the digestive cavity, the gastrovascular cavity of the invertebrate, and partially digested particles will completely be digested once that they are inside the absorptive cells. No, wastes then are expelled through the same opening, through the same mouth. No, okay. So here you can see digestive enzymes released from the absorptive cells. They break down food. Food particles are broken down. Then food particles are engulfed intracellularly, where further breaking down happens and food is ultimately digested. And waste material exits the same opening. Okay. Then we have this example for the last one, which is complete digestive tube, and mostly extracellular digestion is taking place. So, some examples include birds, some insects, mammals, and some worms. So, example of usually the annelida, the roundworms are examples for complete digestive tube, where mostly extracellular digestion occurs. So in these animals, the digestive tube has two openings, a mouth and an anus. So there is a flow, a one-way flow of food material entering the mouth, and the waste material produced via the digestion of food exits through the other opening, through the anus. So there is no mixing of ingested food or wastes in this pattern of digestion. Okay, so food passes one way or unidirectionally through a series of organs that facilitate food digestion, absorption, and elimination of wastes. Okay, now looking into the organ system, the digestive organ system, so we can divide it into two parts, two generic groups. The digestive tube, which is the main organ, also goes by the name alimentary canal, the gastrointestinal tube, or the gut. So it encompasses the mouth down to the anus, the entire tube. Okay, and there are accessory organs or structures associated with the gut, with the gastrointestinal tract, that um, allow the secretion of certain substances or homogeneous solutions that allow that essentially aid in the digestion of food material. Okay. Now, the digestive process actually has several steps or mechanisms or several sequences, or there is a sequence of events that take place for digestive processes, no? To or for the entire process of digestion to commit to fully be carried out. Okay. And these include the following. So there's ingestion of food, or deglutition. There is propulsion of food material all throughout the gut. There is digestion, breaking down of food material physically, chemically, mechanically. There is absorption of broken down nutrients. And of course, the last stage will be the elimination or the excretion of waste material that are byproducts of food digestion. Okay, so now, before we before we actually look into the animal gastrointestinal tube, no, a few notes on digestive structures or a few notes on the digestive systems of other types of animals. So in terms of let's go back. Okay, in terms of protozoans, no? Protozoans, I think I've mentioned already while discussing a while ago. They have food vacuoles, and these food vacuoles contain digestive enzymes that digest the food material into smaller substances. The waste products are delivered outside via residual vacuoles. For the case of cnidarians, right, the gut is also called the gastrovascular cavity. So here, let's see if I can have. So here, this gut here, the gut area is called the gastrovascular cavity. Okay. And it's a blind closed sac, so food and waste mixes from time to time. For the case of other animals like molluscans, the filter feeders, okay, or some filter feeders. For molluscans, digestive tract contains a short esophagus that opens to a stomach. There is a midgut, a hindgut, and a rectum. No, the stomach for the case of molluscans is the primary site for intracellular digestion. The midgut, hindgut, and rectum will function for the other sequential steps of digestion and absorption. Okay. Then for the case of insects, like the one you can see here for the case of a grasshopper, okay, they possess a digestive tract consisting of a mouth, an esophagus, a crop, a stomach, intestine, rectum, and anus. The mouth area, mandible and maxilla, allows for the chewing process of the animal or the invertebrate, and allows for breaking up of food into smaller pieces. There are salivary glands that are associated to the oral cavity of insects that produce saliva with production I mean, with the production of specific enzymes such as amylases, and there are also gastric glands within the gut that secrete lipases, allowing for digestion of food material. Food will then pass from the crop to the stomach of the insect. Then eventually extracellular digestion takes place. Nutrient absorption mostly happens in the intestines, and then food material that is not used up will pass into the rectum for subsequent water reabsorption. Okay. All right, now we'll look into the digestive system of the animal, of the human body. So let's focus our discussion on the digestive system of the human body. So first, let's look at the oral cavity. Okay. So the oral cavity consists of several structures such as the lips, the tongue, teeth, okay, and associated glands, especially the associated salivary glands. Okay, so the lips, they are the openings of the mouth, and they are modified in different animals. So for humans, they're soft, they're tissue, fleshy. In mammals, especially for as an example, our lips, humans, are fleshy. While for other groups of vertebrates like birds and turtles, the lips have been modified to form beaks. No? Then there's also the tongue, which is not found in invertebrates. So among fishes, the tongue is not muscular and actually may have teeth for holding on to prey. While for humans or for terrestrial animals, no, it's different. Okay, so in mammals, the tongue is a muscular organ. It's at the floor of the mouth and covered with mucous membrane, which assist in chewing, no, and swallowing of the food material. Then in other groups of animals such as amphibians and reptiles, no, the tongue is highly mobile and it can project from the mouth to long distances or considerable long distances to capture their prey. Okay, so let's look more into the tongue, right? So for humans, okay, the tongue has I don't know has special sensory structures, right, that allow us to interpret the taste of specific food. So we have taste buds that are specialized structures within the tongue, and these taste buds are associated to the sensation of specific tastes: sweet, bitter, sour, salty. Okay, and there are specific locations within the human tongue where bitterness, sourness, saltiness, and sweetness are interpreted as is. No, okay. Then let's look into the glands. So we have the salivary gland, which secretes saliva. So the salivary gland is found on the structures or on the areas that you can see identified in this figure. Okay, so the salivary glands of humans allow for the secretion of saliva with associated amylases for the breakdown of starch material. Okay, and then um, before we look into the salivary glands on in terms of the teeth, okay, so teeth of humans, no, they are situated in the anterior positions or anterior locations of the animal body, anterior lateral, because there are numerous sets of the animal tongue or the human tongue that grows within the entire mouth or grows on the maxilla and mandibular region of the animal mouth. Okay. So in terms of kinds, there is what we call the milk teeth, the primary, deciduous, or the temporary teeth that will all fall out eventually as we grow age, and there is permanent, secondary, or successor or succidarus set of teeth. So for the case of um, for the case of the salivary glands, ayan. So we have three types. We have the parotid gland, the sublingual gland, and the submandibular gland. Okay, so the salivary glands are not only present in mammals, no, they can also be found in other invertebrates or in invertebrates like insects and other vertebrates such as amphibians and birds. Primary function is to secrete saliva, which is acting as a lubricant for food particle swallowing from mouth going to the stomach. The enzymes break down the food material into smaller, more simpler substances. Like carbohydrate is broken down by amylases. Then there are specifically starches can be broken down by salivary amylase. Okay, and then lipases can be broken down break down triglycerides into fatty acids and monoglycerides. Okay, now for mammals, okay, the specific pairs here you can see are the parotid, sublingual, and the submandibular or submaxillary gland. So the parotid gland, it is lying on the side of the face immediately below the ears. So you can see in this presentation or this illustration, the parotid gland is just beneath the ears. The submandibular or the submaxillary is beneath the jaw. So submandibular beneath the jaw, the lower jaw. And the sublingual lies beneath the tongue. So those are the things that you have to remember. Parotid is near or nearest to the ear, sub below, meaning below, sublingual below the tongue, then submandibular or submaxillary below the lower jaw. Okay. Then let's look into the different characteristics of the animal saliva. So usually we secrete about 1 to 1.5 liters of saliva every day. Mostly saliva is water. To be exact, it's 99.5% water and 0.5% solute. Aside from water, I mean, in what's suspended in the watery portion of the saliva are solutes such as ions, sodium, potassium, chlorine, bicarbonates for pH buffering, and then we also have phosphates. Our saliva is actually on the alkaline or usually on the middle of the pH scale. So it's alkaline acidic, no? So 6.35 to 6.85. Some instances, saliva may include dissolved gases, of course, for the case, especially for the case of mammals that depend on oxygen. Also may contain urea and uric acid, additional enzymes, lysozymes, and then we have the amylases and the lipases. Okay, so as a summary, we have several things to remember about the oral cavity. So ingestion or deglutition takes place in the process, ingestion or the process of swallowing. Okay, actually no, ingestion is the initial entry. So when you say ingestion, that's the initial entry of food material in the animal body. Now, when you talk about deglutition or swallowing, of course, it's a subsequent part already or subsequent step. So, physical digestion happens in the mouth, in the oral cavity through mastication, primarily with the aid of the tongue and the teeth, while chemical digestion happens with the use of enzymes. So, our enzymes found in the saliva, amylases, and lipases. So, food that is chewed within the oral cavity with the use or with the use or the help of the saliva secreted by the salivary glands is now called a bolus. Okay. Right. So now we move on to the next part of the digestive system of the animal body, of the human animal body. So next is our pharynx and our esophagus. Okay. So the pharynx, let's have a picture first. So here you can see the pharynx, also called the throat, is the region between the mouth and the esophagus. So it's just a medium size or a short tube, which can be divided into few sections. So there is a nasopharyngeal section associated with the nasal cavity, nasal opening. There is the oropharyngeal region associated with the oral cavity, and then there is the laryngo okay, sorry. The laryngopharynx, the laryngo region, the laryngopharynx region associated with our respiratory opening, respiratory organs. Okay. Now, um, the pharynx as a is actually a common passageway for several items, for several things. So there's food, there is air, and there is liquid as materials that can pass through the pharyngeal tube. Okay, and for esophagus, so here connecting to the stomach later on. Okay, so the esophagus of the human animal body, it's a muscular tube. It's a straight muscular tube that conducts via the process of peristalsis. No? Mechanical digestion takes place by peristalsis, and with chemical digestion, no, due to the action of salivary enzymes, and the food is further broken down as it travels through the esophagus. Okay, and so the process of deglutition or swallowing is associated with the pharyngeal and the esophageal tubes. Okay, so here you can see in this visual, the upper esophageal sphincter is contracted on the initial onset of food material being uh, masticated or physically digested in the oral cavity. And then the upper esophageal sphincter relaxes for the bolus food to go through or to go down the esophagus. And then the esophageal sphincter will again contract in order to really facilitate its peristaltic movement across the esophageal tube. Okay. Here you can see the esophagus, which is a straight tube connecting the mouth, throat region, and the stomach region. Okay, so what else? Okay, think yeah, that's for the discussion on the esophagus. And then yeah, this is just another example. So you can see as the bolus travels through the as the bolus travels through the esophagus, there is contraction, relaxation of the associated sphincters. Okay, now what are the things that we have to remember about the pharyngeal and the esophageal tubes? So the pharynx, also called throat, divided in three subsections associated with the nasal cavity for nasopharynx, with the oral cavity, the oropharynx, and the respiratory organs, which is associated to the end portion of the pharyngeal tube. Okay? And then, in terms of digestion, of course, physical and chemical takes place. Physical happens through peristalsis, chemical happens through the aid of enzymes found in the saliva, found in the lining of the digestive tube. In this area, both the pharynx and esophagus, the food material is still called a bolus. Okay? Now we'll move on to the discussion of the stomach, but I think we'll have to cut the video short to make it consumable for everyone. So I'll stop here.